Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I am here to speak, and I'm glad I'm speaking after Representative Smizik and after Representative Senicandro, because I believe everything that they've just said. I believe that we have a system that relies too heavily on a very narrow swath of learning that can't always be translated into maximizing every child's future and every child's success. Representative Cantwell was here and I think has left. I'd like to start with his bill, which is House 370. He speaks in particular about making sure that every child with special needs that takes the MCAS is able to be afforded the same accommodations in the giving of that test that they are given every single day that they attend school. To me, that seems to be a very reasonable request. I have some working knowledge of this as the mother of a child on the autism spectrum. My son encounters great difficulties in taking the MCAS test because very basic accommodations that are made every single day are suddenly called into question and taken away under the guise of test security, and I think that's wrong. And I would suggest that there are enough bills here that all look at these issues that we really ought to be considering a working group to look at this. I also am in favor of Alice Peisch's bill number 467, which also takes a look at this issue of children with special needs who may have already been accepted into a post-secondary education program. She had a student in her district when she was in her freshman year who had Down syndrome, who was accepted to a culinary school and was not allowed to matriculate out of her high school, despite the fact that she had met with all of the local education requirements because she had not passed MCAS. And at that time, and I still think there are issues with limited access and acceptance of portfolio assessments, that child was not able to go to that cooking school. So that's another issue. I'm also in favor of Representative Peisch's bills number 468, which also take a look at kids with learning disabilities and trying to, again, make sure that they've met with the goals of their individual education plan, that ought to be the standard in these circumstances. And then she also has House 469, which gets into other issues in addition to kids with disabilities, kids of limited English speaking, and others who are having great difficulty. I think it's something that we really need to go back and assess. I know the battle line has been drawn about having MCAS or not having it, and I guess I share Rep. Senicandro's feeling that if given the choice, I would prefer to eliminate it altogether. But if that's not a workable solution, I think we need to sit down more than 10 years into this now and figure out what is working, what's not working. I was very disappointed with the governor's readiness project results because there was a little passing mention for a second about kids with special needs and that we ought to be looking at helping perhaps with concurrent enrollment. But other than that, there was really no meaningful dialogue whatsoever to talk about how we're going to help these kids who we are investing in as a Commonwealth to be able to matriculate out of the public school system and be able to be meaningful and functional citizens of this Commonwealth. So I strongly suggest that the common thread throughout all of these is that this is not working and we need to take a look at it. So I'm also in favor of House 490, which is Rep. Senicandro's bill to eliminate. I'm also in favor of House 502, which Representative Smizik just talked about, in terms of making sure that families have access after tests have been taken to take a look at the test scoring, to look at the questions, to get a sense of what's been tested so that we have a better sense of our kids and where their challenges may lie. House 507, Ted Spiliotis' bill to, again, that any child enrolled in a special ed program that passing the MCAS not be a condition for graduation. And I just feel very strongly that the reason why you see so many bills year in and year out is because we are not doing this properly. I would also like to mention that Representative Mary Grant has a bill to look at limiting the number of hours to no more than 6 hours per year for standardized testing. That's House 401. I think that's something worth considering. If in fact we're going to try and find some middle ground between MCAS as it currently stands and abolishing it, I think we need to come up with something that's more workable than what we have right now. Representative Fernandez has House 387, and I'm sure he'll speak about it in greater detail, but it basically, again, wants to base MCAS alternative assessments on IEP goals, not on MCAS standards. And again, I just have a lot of anecdotal evidence about how this alternative assessment is not being brought out in a timely manner. It's not being successfully applied. I think it's something that we need to look at, because we have a recognition that, you know, on the one hand, we may have children who, for whom the MCAS test is very easy, very shallow, very, you know, just very simple to pass. We also have kids that have great difficulty passing those tests. And I, again, question, you know, my son is on the autism spectrum, who is barely eking by with the bare base minimum that you can pass to pass MCAS. Will have technically passed MCAS, but it will be in no way a reflection of the challenges that his life is going to have. It's just very troublesome to me. Two more bills, and thank you for your indulgence. Liz Malia has House 461 that looks at the MCAS appeals process, that looks at allowing children to begin to engage in the process of an appeal at the first failure, not waiting until you've failed 3 times. At allowing not only the student or their parent, but also the school system to begin to set into motion an appeals process. Requiring that once you set that appeals process in motion, that you begin to assemble a portfolio assessment necessary for those who may never pass the MCAS. So I think that that's an important and very thoughtful piece of legislation, House 461. And then finally, I guess as Rep. Sanacandro alluded to, although he and I may, our hearts may lie within eliminating MCAS altogether, Representative Carl Shortino has House 3660, which I think takes a look at an acceptance of MCAS being here, but makes some real, suggests some real changes to the manner in which testing would be given. It would incorporate multiple measures. It would involve both locally developed and state-approved assessments to evaluate. It would require that we look at a whole lot more than just learning as fact-driven. It would require the folks being able to show critical thinking skills. It would offer an opportunity to be able to present what you've learned and what you know through essays, tasks, projects, performances, exhibits, lab experiments, or other performance assessment tools. So it broadens you well beyond test taking to some of the other ways in which people can demonstrate how they've learned. And then it gets into other detail, which I think Rep. Sanacandro will come in later and speak about, but it speaks to an accreditation process for all schools, including Commonwealth Charter and Horace Mann Charter schools. And it requires annual reporting back on measurable outcomes. And it also actually gives some intervention processes in the event that the schools are not performing to the level that they should. So there are other bills as well that you'll hear today, I'm sure. I think it raises a very critical general concern that MCAS as it currently stands, you know, there are some who are concerned about it, just people teaching to the test and it limiting critical thinking skills, etc. There's that side of the spectrum. And there are, there's the anxiety that Rep. Smizik talked about, and there are also people who are failing at this test that we need to be very mindful of and figure out a way that we can help them. So again, I would say that the common thread in all of these would be that this is not an issue that's resolved itself, and I think that we, especially right now when times are tough, when money is tight, should not be a time that we should retreat from working together on identifying the challenges that we have within the system and seeing if there are ways that we can make it better. Thank you.